Yeah. I want to say something about Martin Luther King. Every year we celebrate his birthday, and I thought King was just an awesome guy. Here's a brother who gave up his life at 39 years old. They hounded him like a dog. And many times when we celebrate King on January the 15th, that's the day he was born, we celebrate his birthday on January the 20th. Many times we see footage of him at the Washington Monument giving his I Have a Dream speech. That's the least important speech he probably ever gave, and he probably didn't say much. It was all poetry. But at least he put it out there, and it showed in an uninterrupted sense that here's a man who captured the imagination of the American people and people all over the world. But what they neglect to show you is the more controversial King as he came out against the war in 1968, really 1967, against Vietnam. He gave a speech at Riverside Baptist Church in New York City, where he outlined 10 reasons, 10 moral reasons why he was against the war in Vietnam. And the first reason was the fact that we were bombing this Vietnamese villages, killing kids, killing their families, killing women and children. I mean, here's a moral thinker. But when you have all this fire in the world and all this craziness in the world, nobody cares about the innocent suffering. And here was Martin Luther King raising his moral voice. Nobody else would do it. Here was Martin Luther King in 1968 who was going to close down Washington, D.C. There are about 6 bridges that lead you into Washington, D.C. And Martin Luther King was going all around the nation, organizing. That's why he was in Memphis, Tennessee. He was building up steam to go to Washington, D.C. There were about 6 bridges in Washington, D.C. And Martin Luther King was training people to go to Washington, D.C. and sit on those bridges. No congressman, no senator, no ambassador. We're going to shut down the federal government. And now we hear that Occupy Detroit and Occupy Wall Street. That is play to what Martin Luther King was talking about. He had already done it in Birmingham, Alabama. So now you can see that the powerful forces are saying, we got to get rid of this guy. And they had started years before. But here was a man who did his dissertation on the concept of God. And he did an analysis on the concept of God and the thinking of Paul Tillich and Henry Nelson Wyman. And when you listen to King speak, he's always talking about God and the nature of God and how God rules and how God moves in history and how God moves in you and in me. But you don't hear about that on Martin Luther King's birthday. All we hear is, I have a dream, I have a dream, I have a dream. Martin Luther King was not only going to shut down Washington, D.C., but he wanted Congress to pass an economic bill of rights. And he had gone to an economist and said, it costs about $20 billion, this was back in 1968, to disperse between all the poor people in America. We got that type of money. If you can't find a job, you have a guaranteed income. There's certain rights that you have just by being on the earth. And King understood that. He understood that in an intellectual way. He understood that in an emotional way. And here's his brother, 39 years old, a Christian man, and he was still growing. He had a lot of respect for Malcolm X, a whole lot of respect for Malcolm X. But he was going to the Washington, D.C. to present an economic bill of rights. And he wanted all those people to flood the congressman and senator's office. And this is what he wanted. Some of the things he wanted. He wanted a guaranteed income for people in America, those who were poor. But this was nothing new. Back in 1933, President Roosevelt, after the Great Depression, also came out with an economic bill of rights. It sounds eerily similar to, King sound eerily similar to what President Roosevelt. So it's not a black thing, it's not a white thing. It's an American thing, it's a justice thing. Roosevelt said, the Bill of Rights, everybody has a right to a job. Everybody has a right to earn enough to pay for food and clothing. Everyone has a right of businessmen to be free of unfair competition and domination by monopolies. The right to a decent home. Look at the mortgage. Now this was written in 1933. Look at the mortgage crisis. That was an international conspiracy. The right to a decent home. The right to adequate medical care and an opportunity to enjoy good health. These are certain rights. The right to adequate protection from the economic fears of old age, sickness, accident, and unemployment. The right to a good education. And so, King's Economic Bill of Rights was eerily similar to what President Roosevelt had put down in 1933. So as we come to Dr. King's birthday, and he didn't die a rich man. He even said in one of his last sermons, listen, I don't have a lot of money to leave behind. I don't have the fine and luxurious things of life behind. He says, but I have a committed life to leave behind. And I think that as we honor people who have died, then we need to go back and do some deep research and let their words get into us and put them in historical context. How would you like to give up your life? How would you like to see a bullet coming at you at the age of 39 and you walking right towards that bullet? He could have left the civil rights movement. He could have taught at Morehouse or Harvard or Princeton or any community college or any college or university all around the world. But no, he was in Memphis, Tennessee, organizing garbage workers. These guys were in Memphis, Tennessee. One of the guys' arms got cut off. They had no union protection. And this was Martin Luther King. If you're going to find God in low places. Find God in ordinary people. Find God in people who stand at the bus stop waiting for 3 hours to catch the bus. Find God in people who love their wives and love their kids, who get up every day, who try to make the American dream not slide into an American nightmare. So I just challenge and I want to encourage people to look at King once again. Look at his upbringing. And we don't have to go far into philosophy to find out what King's philosophical thought was. All we have to do is find out where he went to church. He heard these sermons from his father as a young boy growing up in Atlanta at Ebenezer Baptist Church. He heard sermons of freedom, justice, and equality. And all this was reinforced when he went to Morehouse College. I went to college with both of Dr. King's sons. I was at Morehouse in 1977, and Martin Luther King III was there, and Dexter was behind me. These are some wonderful guys. I mean, Marty is cool, and Dexter is cool. Just a wonderful, down-to-earth. King has some good, and Marty, I mean, he just walks around campus like, I mean, this is just the typicalness of Martin Luther King. That he was a family man, married, and then he goes to Boston. He goes to Crozier Theological Seminary, and he reads all these writers and stuff. Then he goes to Boston University and he concentrates in personalism. Personalism is the belief that if you want to understand God, you have to understand human personality. The key to understanding God is understanding human personality. So King got his PhD in personalism, and then from Boston University, he gets caught up in the civil rights movement. And because he was so well versed in his understanding of God and his love for people, here was a man who really gave up his life. And the older I get, the more I really appreciate this guy. So I hope that in his birthday, we really take a pause and listen to his words once again. Listen to what he said once again. Listen to where he was at the end of his life. And I think we'll be a better people are for. We're going to have to learn how to reconnect with our ancestors and listen to those messages that have become dulled and sullied by our mass media. So happy birthday, Martin Luther King, and happy birthday, America.